progress and said, "We will host the Chinese AI lab's large language models on domestic servers in a rare opening for Chinese tech in India." Well, US President Donald Trump and his allies are blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives for contributing to the tragic plane crash outside of DC on Wednesday night without providing any evidence of a link between the two. Trump has claimed the FAA's DEI policies had included hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities, but I'll tell you why this is a big deal. Trump repeatedly cited DEI policies, which is a favorite boogeyman at the Federal Aviation Administration, as having some role in the plane collision during White House remarks. He also blamed Democrats who advanced inclusive workplace policies. You must note, while the cause of the crash is not yet known, Trump implicitly equated racial, gender, and other forms of diversity with a lower quality federal workforce. Meanwhile, officials say there hadn't been anything unusual about the flight paths for either aircraft leading up to the collision, nor had there been a breakdown in communications. But in reality, aviation experts have focused on a shortage of air traffic controllers rather than any DEI initiatives as a safety concern.
Administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing.
Well, as you've just heard, Trump and his allies are blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives for contributing to this tragic plane crash. They have not provided any evidence of a link between the two, but the US president claimed that the FAA's DEI policies had included hiring people, and I quote, with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. Why is this a big deal? Well, Trump has repeatedly cited DEI policies at the Federal Aviation Administration as having some role in the plane collision during his remarks at the White House. He has also blamed Joe Biden's administration, the Democrats, who advanced inclusive workplace policies. But as we speak, the cause of the crash is not yet known. Trump implicitly equated racial, gender, and other forms of diversity with a lower quality federal workforce, though. Meanwhile, officials say there had not been anything unusual about the flight paths for either aircraft leading up to the collision, nor had there been a breakdown in communications. But aviation experts have focused, meanwhile, on a shortage of air traffic controllers rather than any DEI initiatives, as Trump had claimed. But this mid-air collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army helicopter in Washington, D.C. killed all 67 people aboard both aircraft, and a preliminary report from officials says that staffing at the air control tower was not normal at the time of this crash.
Blackjack 3, can you return to base? Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes?
In one of Washington's deadliest disasters in decades, an American Airlines plane carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members crashed after a mid-air collision with a U.S. Army helicopter. DC officials have said there were 3 soldiers in the Army helicopter. The crash occurred as the plane was landing at the Ronald Reagan Airport near Washington, D.C., just 5 kilometers from the White House. Both aircrafts plunged into the Potomac River. Hundreds of first responders are braving frigid waters in a desperate recovery mission as authorities believe there are no survivors.
At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident. And we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter, where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation.
You know, when one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many, many, many people die, it's an unbearable sorrow. It's a heartbreak beyond measure.
American Airlines CEO Robert Isom has expressed his deep sorrow over the collision.
First and most importantly, I'd like to express our deep sorrow about these events. This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders, along with their families and loved ones.
My colleague Alistair D'Souza has been tracking the latest developments in Washington, D.C. for us. He joins us live at the moment. Alistair, as you've been reporting, 2 black boxes have been recovered, and also now the staffing at air traffic control is coming into question. Take us through what all we know so far.
Let's talk about that. Those 2 black boxes that have been recovered, Parmeshwar, as we've been saying, media reports actually confirming that those black boxes from the jet have been recovered. One belongs to would be about the cockpit voice recorder. The other collects the data. So the data recorder, 2 sets of black boxes recovered from that American Airlines jet at this point in time. Now, the big question is, what are we going to hear as far as details that come through? What details do we get as far as what was said in the cockpit moments before that crash? Also, what details do we get in terms of flying altitude and other things that would come through? Now, ordinarily, this might not take long. It could take a few hours for authorities to crack this, to get into those black boxes and get that data out to give us an understanding of what potentially happened. But that may not actually be the case. It might be weeks before we actually hear from authorities. Also, one must remember that as far as these black boxes go, we also don't know if they may have potentially been damaged in the explosion. Also, of course, those black boxes are made to withstand a lot of impact. So hopefully in this case, things stay intact and authorities are able to access that. But that would be one of the questions that we'll be waiting to hear as to how good if the black boxes have been compromised by any way in terms of the impact and damage. So lots going to be coming out in the next few days as far as what details we would be able to recover from those 2 black boxes that have been recovered now a few hours ago here in Washington, D.C.
Alistair, also President Trump has slammed the former administration, Biden's administration. Some are now blaming him for the crash.
Yeah, so in a press conference, President Trump actually went out and blamed President Obama and President Biden for certain initiatives that they put into place. This whole diversity issue, DEI, is a big hot button issue here in the United States. Just a few days ago, after he was sworn in as President of the United States for the 2nd time. That was one of the things, one of those executive orders that he went down on, deciding that none of these diversity initiatives in government programs should continue. They should be immediately seized. And for some reason, President Trump had decided during this press conference that he's going to tie the fact that these diversity initiatives are in place in various government officials, in places like airports and government jobs or in federal jobs, that somehow this crash was tied to that, kind of alluding that there was potentially some compromise in terms of the competency of air traffic controllers in who were on duty at that point in time, and therefore a potential error on their part that led to this crash. But at the same time, that same press conference, he then went on to cast blame on the pilots of the helicopter and the aircraft, and then he went back again to blame Biden and Obama for their initiatives as far as diversity goes. So this is something that many people say has been politicized, something that he really shouldn't have been talking about at this point in time. And this is not new. Very quickly, Parameshwar, last month when we saw that terror attack in New Orleans, Trump was quick to say that that had something to do with migrants, when actually the perpetrator of the attack was born here in the United States.
Alistair, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the latest information you've accessed. Well, it's the deadliest airline crash in nearly a quarter of a century in the United States. But Trump has appointed Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year-old FAA veteran, as acting administrator of the agency. Now, Trump described Rocheleau as a highly respected individual. The Federal Aviation Administration's most recent administrator, Michael Whitaker, resigned when Trump took office last week, and he held the job for about 15 months. Well, in other news, US officials are probing whether Chinese AI startup DeepSeek bought advanced NVIDIA semiconductors through third parties in Singapore, circumventing US restrictions on the sales of chips used for artificial intelligence tasks. Reports state that congressional offices, meanwhile, are being warned not to use DeepSeek, which is roiling the American AI market as we speak. And this, as the bipartisan leaders of an influential congressional committee has said that NVIDIA chips should be hit with tighter US export controls following revelations that the company's tech was used by Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek. Well, in other news, Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump's nominee for National Intelligence Director, refused to call the whistleblower Edward Snowden a traitor, but sought to rein in her unorthodox views on foreign dictators and opposition to electronic surveillance during a tense confirmation hearing that could sink her nomination to oversee the country's sprawling intelligence community. Meanwhile, Kash Patel sought to allay concerns about his fitness to serve as the FBI director at his Senate confirmation hearing, but declined to engage with questioning that explicitly asked whether he would use his position to investigate some of Trump's top political opponents. The hearing revolved around Patel's provocative public remarks, attacking the FBI and his ability to resist political pressure from the White House, a topic that has come to the fore with the Justice Department rocked by the ouster of prosecutors who worked on cases against Trump. Listen into their reactions.
I'd like to welcome my father, Pramod, and my mother, Anjana, who are sitting here today. They traveled here to get here from India. My sister's also here, Nisha. She also traversed the oceans just to be with me here today. It means the world that you guys are here. Jai Shri Krishna. The priority of the FBI, if I'm confirmed, will be to ensure that our communities are protected and safeguarded and our children have parks to play in and not needles to walk over.
I went with former Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who had been there many times before and who had met with Assad before. A number of topics were covered and discussed, and to directly answer your question, yes, I asked him tough questions about his own regime's actions, the use of chemical weapons and the brutal tactics that were being used against his own people.
In no way does Russia get a pass in either your mind or your heart, or in any policy recommendation you would make or not make.
Senator, I'm offended by the question because my sole focus, commitment, and responsibility is about our own nation, our own security, and the interests of the American people.
Well, let's switch tracks now. NASA has green-lighted the Axiom 4 mission to be piloted by India's group captain, Shubhanshu Shukla. The Indian astronaut will be joined by 3 others on the 14-day mission to the International Space Station. And Shubhanshu Shukla is set to become the second Indian to go to space after Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma's journey on board the Soyuz T-11 back in 1984 in April. He will take on the role of pilot on the Axiom Mission 4, which will go to the International Space Station from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida no earlier than spring 2025. News and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Don't go anywhere.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
Now we move on to the next category, which is the Youth Icon of the Year. And for this, मैं एक बार फिर से request करूँगी आशा पारेख जी का स्टेज पर आने के लिए और साथ ही invite करेंगे मयंक अग्रवाल जी को, CEO, Gallant Group of Industries, to join us on stage for this next category of awards.
Ananya Pandey.
Congratulations, Ananya. And Ananya Pandey, actor, is getting this award for her advocacy work on combating cyberbullying, growing achievements in the film industry, and strong influence on social media. And that's what makes Ananya Pandey NDTV Youth Icon of the Year 2024. She represents a blend of modern values, relatability, and a commitment to meaningful causes, which are essential qualities for inspiring today's youth.
Congratulations, very many
Thank
congratulations.
you. Thank
And
you.
Ananya, there are just a few questions for
Yes.
you. You've, diverse characters, and you've made a shift from big screen to OTT. Big superstars have done their shift. What is your opinion on that, and what's your next move?
Firstly, I just want to thank NDTV for this award. It's truly very, very humbling, and to get it from Asha Parekh ji, I'm such a big fan of your work, so this is a pinch me moment for sure. I don't believe any screen is too big or small. It's a screen at the end of the day, and the world is developing so fast. There's so many changes that are being made, so I think we're all just keeping up with the times.
Ananya, the fact is that 2024, this year has been phenomenal for you. One success after another. Kahan Kho Gaye Hum, Call Me Bae, CTRL. How does it feel to have multiple successes in one single year?
It's really a dream come true. I really think this year for me, more than ever, I felt very connected to my fans with Kho Gaye Hum Kahan and Call Me Bae and Control. I've done movies in the past, but this is the first time that I felt true love from the audience. And, all these films and shows have been conversation starters. People have not just come up to me and said that they like my work, but how my work has kind of made them feel seen or represented on screen. And for an actor, I think that's a huge victory for me.
So Asha ji is here on stage, and sometimes back मैंने आपसे ये पूछा था कि आज के दौर में स्टारडम कैसे हैंडल करना है, तो अनन्या आपके साथ हैं जो स्टारडम को एक अलग तरीके से हैंडल कर रही हैं. कुछ एडवाइस अनन्या के लिए, या अनन्या आपको आशा जी से कुछ पूछना है?
जी, आप प्लीज़ बताइए, आप मुझे एडवाइस दीजिए, प्लीज़.
क्या बताऊं?
कुछ भी, आप कुछ भी बताइए, मैं ले लूँगी.
Sincerity, hard work takes you in a long way. That's what I...
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Further 110 Palestinian prisoners have now been freed from Israeli jails as part of the ceasefire deal. In phase 1, the current phase of the ceasefire and hostage release deal, a total of 33 Israeli hostages taken captive by Hamas and other armed groups in the October 7 attacks are supposed to be freed. By the way, Donald Trump has signed an executive order to combat anti-Semitism that asks agencies to explore ways to deport pro-Palestinian activists, including student protesters. The US President's order instructs federal agencies to identify available civil and criminal authorities in order to combat anti-Semitism, specifically by deporting resident aliens such as students with visas who were found to have broken the law during protests. Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Joining us today is somebody whose journey in Indian cinema is almost parallel to independent India's journey. Almost 7-8 decades that she has acted, directed, censored Indian cinema. She has been a vital part, a vital cog of India's journey through all these 7-8 decades. Asha Parekh, welcome to NDTV.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Asha ji, you were part of the golden era of Indian cinema, worked with the best filmmakers, iconic actors. How do you look at your own journey?
Well, it's been a very long journey, and I enjoyed being where I was. And the adulation of the fans was really very great, and I enjoyed it.
And more than the enjoyment, you contributed immensely to the growth of Indian cinema through, the years that it was actually growing up?
Yeah, it was a golden era, I would say, and we had lovely music, we had lovely lyrics, very good directors, very good cameramen. Not that we don't have them now, but at that time it was a different thing altogether.
And 1960s and 1970s, there was a lot of larger than life, depiction in cinema. How did you see the transition? I mean, your own journey and the transition of Indian cinema.
Well, the films which I did were happy-go-lucky cinema.
Like
and
you.
Yes, and the transition which has taken place has been good, I think so. We are coming out with more realistic films, and sometimes the films are not good because they don't have a good story, a good script. That's what I feel. In our times, the dialogues were very beautiful. I remember Main Tulsi Tere Aangan Ki. Dr. Saab had written such fabulous dialogues that I think it was one of the best films of my life.
And Kati Patang?
Yes, Kati Patang also. That was Gulshan Nanda's story. And it was a little bit of a shift from my glamour image into doing some serious roles.
And then breaking of taboos, you were depicting a subject which was very taboo during those days.
Yes.
So, from being this glam queen to those kind of roles, I mean, how did you dabble through all those genres?
Well, it wasn't very difficult, but as such, people thought that I was just a glamour girl and not a good artist. So I had to prove myself that no, I can act. And that started with Do Badan. Not from Kati Patang, but Do Badan.
But tell us, Asha ji, your journey in Indian cinema is almost like, 7 decades plus journey. See, India also changed a lot, Bollywood changed a lot.
Yes.
How do you see the transition of Indian cinema, transition of India as a country where we are moving in the direction that we are moving, as both as a iconic participant in that journey and then as an observer who can today have the luxury of watching it from a distance?
Well, as you people have come out with the National of the Year, it's a fabulous idea, and that shows how much India has, gone ahead. We are doing fabulously. And films, as I said right now, that it has taken a transition. We are having good films coming, good artists coming. You see, what was that, before we used to do 4 films together. These days, the actors do only 1 film at a time. So that is a very good thing because you are just concentrating on 1 film. We were doing 4 films. Sometimes we were doing 2 shifts, 7 to 2 and 2 to 10. So that is the thing which has been very good for the industry. That's what I feel.
So there was no work-life balance for you?
No.
Hello and good morning. You're watching Breakfast Show. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy joining you from Mumbai studios. We also have Divya Vadva joining us from Delhi, and Vasudha will also be joining us from Parliament in a bit. Divya, stormy budget session coming up. Opposition all set to corner the government over various issues, and we will also get you the latest from Battleground Delhi as well. That's right, ahead of the presentation as far as the budget is concerned, coming up tomorrow by Nirmala Sitharaman, it is going to be President Draupadi Murmu who will commence the budget session of the Parliament today. She'll address jointly, she will be sitting on both the houses, and of course this is with Nirmala Sitharaman, who will table the economic survey in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, providing an official assessment of the performance of the economy in the ongoing financial year. We'll get you all the details. First, let's get you the headlines. In the budget session that will begin today, it's President Murmu who will be addressing the Parliament. Many bills to be tabled in the session, the economic survey to be tabled today.
And Poonch encounter, 2 terrorists have been killed in a gunfight. Army troops, in fact, managed to foil an infiltration attempt.
And the war of words continues between the opposition, of course, here in the national capital and the government in Delhi. But today, it is the Election Commission that has given its deadline of 11 o'clock of Arvind Kejriwal to provide the proof that he can in regard to the claims he's making about the poison in the water in Delhi.
Amit Shah's scathing attack on Arvind Kejriwal. What poison, asks Shah on water claims. Aam Aadmi Party dares BJP, asks them to drink Yamuna water.
And Prime Minister Modi there batting for Fit Rahe India in his pitch. He has in fact spoken about this numerous amount of times, but really highlighting how obesity is impacting Indians, and it is really the hotbed for obesity, as impacts diabetes as well as heart disease, and that's really on the rise. So Bollywood there also hailing what Prime Minister Modi has said, with Akshay Kumar there talking about the importance of good sleep.
Most fatal US air crash in 15 years. Officials say no survivors in mid-air collision. Over 40 bodies recovered so far.
Let's get your top story, and that is in regard to that crash that took place in Washington in the United States. And do remember that, they have now turned that rescue operation to recovery operation, because they are not expecting any sort of survivors in that tragedy that unfolded yesterday in the United States. Now, the US president and his allies are blaming diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives for contributing to that tragic plane crash outside of DC on Wednesday night, without providing any evidence of a link between the two. Now, Donald Trump has claimed that the FAA's policies had included hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities, Radhika. That tragedy in which now what we are hearing is 40 bodies have been recovered. But do remember that on that flight there were 60 passengers, 4 crew members, and on the other side in the chopper there were 3 soldiers, Radhika.
Absolutely, 40 bodies recovered so far, but politics being played by Donald Trump. Why is this a big deal? As far as what Trump's statement is all about. Trump repeatedly cited DEI policy as a favorite boogeyman at the Federal Aviation Administration as having some role in the plane collision during White House remarks. He also blamed Democrats who advanced inclusive workplace policies. This even as we've been reporting, no survivors have been reported in the deadly crash. Let's go straight across to Vishal on this. Vishal, of course, we believe search and rescue operations still underway, but 40 bodies recovered so far, but no survivors, we believe, as far as official confirmation is concerned. But Trump there blaming diversity hiring under Biden-Obama for this deadly crash.
So all of that is a different topic, but he has sort of weaved that into this whole picture that DEI policies could be the reason behind, FAA's lack of ability to handle such a disaster, and also the fact that such a disaster could take place and he's sort of alluding to the fact that DEI policies are responsible for these kind of disasters. So, but as you mentioned, there are no, the experts have not said anything about this. There is no substantial proof to back these claims. But the administration has been harping on this for a while now. So that all of that will come into picture later. But for now, we can confirm that there are no survivors as far as this crash is concerned. All 67 people have been killed reportedly. Officials have said this. And also the fact that the search and rescue operation is almost over. They're just searching for the bodies now. The rescue operation is totally over. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered at the moment, since it's the first big disaster in U.S. soil in the last 15 years. It has a really good record as far as air safety is concerned. So, and American Airlines is one of the biggest airlines in the world, and the fact that the U.S. military helicopter was on its path, all of these questions are still there. They're still hanging more than 24 hours after the crash. So the exact reason behind the crash is still not known. That is the key question that still remains to be answered.
Right. Thank you so much, Vishal, for all those details. Now, let's just get you the details of that war of words that continues as far as the opposition and the government in Delhi is concerned. But today, the Election Commission has given a deadline of 11 o'clock this morning, Radhika, for Arvind Kejriwal to provide proof. Now, of course, dissatisfied with the response as far as Arvind Kejriwal is concerned, the Election Commission had asked him not to link increased ammonia levels in the Yamuna with his allegations of river poisoning, and has asked Arvind Kejriwal, the former Chief Minister of Delhi, to provide proof by 11 o'clock this morning. Do remember, the Election Commission has sought answers to 5 questions, Radhika. Which are those questions that need to be answered by Arvind Kejriwal? That's right. EC has sought answers to 5 questions, including what kind of poison was used, who detected its presence, and how and where it was found. So on Thursday, the poll body giving Aam Aadmi Party leader another chance to substantiate the claims, urging him to provide specific evidence on the type, quantity and manner of poisoning. In response, of course, Kejriwal has accused EC Chief Rajiv Kumar of playing politics, but remains to be seen whether he will provide these proofs as being asked by 11 a.m. today.
अरे केजरीवाल जी, कौन सा जहर मिलाया है? जरा नाम कहिए. कौन सी लेबोरेटरी का टेस्ट है? नाम कहिए. आपने यमुना को प्रदूषित कर प्रदूषित पानी पीने के लिए दिल्ली को मजबूर किया है.
मैं इन लोगों को बोलना चाहता हूं कि आप दिल्ली के लोगों को जहरीला पानी भेज के उनकी हेल्थ के साथ, उनकी सेहत के साथ खिलवाड़ करना चाहते हैं, उनकी जिंदगी के साथ खिलवाड़ करना चाहते हैं. हाई अमोनिया का पानी जो है वो छोटे छोटे बच्चों के लिए इरिवर्सिबल डैमेजेस कर सकता है, और आप हमें धमकी दे रहे हैं कुछ करने की बजाय.
मैं चैलेंज देता हूं केजरीवाल जी, आप दिल्ली के लोगों को गंदा पानी पिलवाते हो. यमुना जी का पानी छोड़ो, यहां जो पानी मिल रहा है उसी को पी के दिखा दो.
Battle for Delhi today on Know Your Candidate. We have Gopal Rai of the Aam Aadmi Party contesting from the seat of Babbarpur. He is, addressing the long pending issue, Radhika, of the national capital and its perennial issue of pollution. That's right. Gopal Rai speaks to our colleague Ishika to know more about the politics playing out regarding the Yamuna and on party's manifesto as well. In fact, Rai says it is the BJP that's copying the Aam Aadmi Party's playbook. Let's listen in.
Episode of Know Your Candidate. We are being joined today with the Delhi Minister. In fact, Gopal Rai with us is also the Delhi State Convener for the Aam Aadmi Party. Sir, आज आप अपने कैंपेनिंग पर निकले हैं. बाबरपुर सीट पे आप यहाँ पे तीसरी बार जीतने की प्रयास कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हिस्ट्री में हमने देखा है कि तीसरे बार में बाबरपुर का मन बदल जाता है. तो क्या इस बार आप इतिहास बदल देंगे?
देखिए, इतिहास पहले ही बदल गया है. बाबरपुर विधानसभा जो सबसे पिछड़ी विधानसभा थी, आज सबसे ज़्यादा काम करने वाली विधानसभा में इतिहास में वो दर्ज हो गई है. तो काम का इतिहास बदला है, इसलिए बाबरपुर की राजनीति का भी इतिहास बदलने वाला है।
सर, आप दिल्ली में मिनिस्टर भी हैं, आपके अंदर इन्वायरमेंट बहुत पहले से है। सर, पोल्यूशन एक बड़ा मुद्दा है इस इलेक्शन में। हम देखें तो फिर लगातार बीजेपी पोस्टर्स भी लगा रही हैं कि पोल्यूशन पर कोई काम नहीं हुआ। यमुना को तो खासकर टारगेट कर रही हैं कि वाटर पोल्यूशन भी नहीं रोक पाए, और ये डेयर भी दे रही हैं कि अरविंद केजरीवाल अभी तक डुबकी नहीं लगा पाए। इसको आम आदमी पार्टी और आप खासकर कैसे इसे कैंपेनिंग से?
पहली बात तो यह है कि पोल्यूशन पूरे उत्तर भारत में है, और वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की केंद्र सरकार की निष्क्रियता की वजह से। दिल्ली के अंदर हम काम कर रहे हैं। दिल्ली में 2016 में 365 में से 109 दिन थे जो बैड क्वालिटी से बाहर थे, अच्छे दिन थे। हमने काम किया, 24 घंटे बिजली हमने दी, जनरेटर ख़त्म कर दिया, 2000 इलेक्ट्रिक बसें सड़क पर हमने उतार दी। दिल्ली के अंदर हमने 20% ग्रीन बेल्ट था, 23% कर दिया। दिल्ली के अंदर 100% पोल्यूटेड इंडस्ट्री को हमने शिफ्ट कर दिया PNG पे। आज 109 से 209 दिन अच्छे लोगों को मिले हैं, लगभग 36% पोल्यूशन कम हुआ है। आगे और करेंगे, लेकिन भाजपा को अपनी जिम्मेदारी निभानी चाहिए। पूरे उत्तर भारत में जो पोल्यूशन है उसके लिए जिम्मेदार भाजपा है।
सर, वो यमुना को लेके भी देखे, परवेश वर्मा ने उस दिन कटआउट जो था अरविंद केजरीवाल का वो लगातार डुबाया, तो और खासकर ये कहा है कि खासकर पूर्वांचली वोटर्स को साधने के लिए कहा है कि कुछ काम नहीं कर पाई है आम आदमी पार्टी। क्या लगता है सर, पूर्वांचली वोट्स के लिए ज़्यादा
1000 जगहों पे छठ पूजा होती है। आज पूर्वांचली जिस अनऑथराइज कॉलोनियों में रहते हैं वहाँ सीवर पाइपलाइन पूरी उनकी ज़िंदगी बदल दिया। अगर सम्मान किसी ने दिया है, विधायक दिया, मंत्री दिया, विकास दिया, उसका नाम आम आदमी पार्टी है। तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को बौखलाहट इसी बात की है। वो कुछ भी कह रहे हैं, कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, उनको पता है चुनाव हार रहे हैं।
मेरा बस आखिरी सवाल आपसे ये है कि इस बार सर करप्शन के जो एलिगेशंस है उसको बीजेपी बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा बना रही है, हर जगह पोस्टर लगा रही है। उनका पूरा प्रयास है कि एक डिफाइनिंग फैक्टर बने, तो आप इस पर क्या कहें?
नहीं, वो तो फैक्टर बन चुका भाई। 2 साल हमारे सभी नेताओं को इन्होंने जेल में डाला, सारी एजेंसियों ने छानबीन की, जीरो निकला, एक चवन्नी भी नहीं मिली। तो जनता को पता है। क्या कहते थे कि अगर कुछ किया नहीं हो तो बेल क्यों नहीं मिल रही, बेल क्यों नहीं मिल रही? बेल सबको मिल गई। जनता को पता है कि इन्होंने षड्यंत्र किया था और जनता इसका जवाब देगी चुनाव में।
70 से 70 सीटें आएंगी इस बार आम आदमी।
देखिए, जनता इतिहास रचने जा रही है इस बार भी।
And to our top story, Parliament is headed for a stormy budget session starting today with customary presidential address to a joint sitting of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, followed by presentation of budget a day later. Divya.
That's right. Of course, Draupadi Murmu in her address to the joint session of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha that is scheduled for 11 o'clock this morning. The government is planning to bring 16 bills in the two-leg session. We have our colleague Vasudha joining us from right outside the Parliament. Vasudha, Draupadi Murmu will commence the budget session, followed by Nirmala Sitharaman, who will table the economic survey.
Absolutely. Good morning, Divya. Good morning, Radhika. Good morning to all our viewers. We come to you from right outside the Parliament. The stage is all set for the budget session of the Parliament to begin in a short while from now. The budget is going to be presented tomorrow. The spotlight is going to be on how Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, in her 8th consecutive budget, manages to give some relief to the salaried class. There is a lot of expectations from this budget. Remember that this is a full-fledged budget that will be presented, and it's going to be very important for the working of Modi 3.0. But what is also important is how the opposition is going to approach this session. Remember, we saw fierce protests over Home Minister Amit Shah's Ambedkar comments in the last session of the Parliament that also led to an FIR, some injuries. This time, it's going to be a fierce session as well. Yesterday, in the all-party meeting in which 52 leaders from 36 political parties took place, the opposition made it very clear that they are going to raise the Mahakumbh issue, the accident